I woke up feeling toxic, so we're gonna talk about Yamato. And I guess there's no better way to start at the beginning, so let's do that. Disclaimer, I'm gonna be using male pronouns for Yamato because that's what Yamato wants, and I'm gonna honor that, even if I'm gonna spend the next several minutes tearing his character apart. Cool, so when Yamato was first introduced, I was actually very on board with the character. At that point, we knew that Kaido's son was on the loose. But we didn't know which side he was on. He could have easily just been another enemy that the Straw Hats had to defeat, and the idea was rather exciting. It is when Luffy and Yamato actually meet that we learn that, hey, Yamato might actually be on our side, which raised the question of why. But that would be revealed later. The thing is, having the son of the enemy you're trying to defeat on your side just makes things more interesting and spicy, and I was there for it. That said, when Yamato takes off his disguise, things take a turn. Not necessarily for the worse, not yet, but they do take a turn. Yamato turns out to be a woman, or is presented as one, physically, you know what I mean. Luffy is confused, I am confused, you are confused, we're all confused. But hey, maybe this was just another Kiku, which I thought was an oddly bold move on Oda's part, like two trans characters in the same arc. Definitely not unwelcome, but unexpected. But hey, Kiku was a delight, an absolute delight, the first queer character done right. Her gender identity or sexuality were not the punchline of a very backwards joke, nor her whole character. Kiku got to be a character in her own right that happened to be trans. That's it. End of story. We can move on with our lives. But that first interaction with Luffy made it very clear that Yamato was very unlike Kiku, and it all went downhill from there. Yamato introduces himself as Kaido's son, but also as Oden. We learn that Kaido and Yamato don't get on well. Yamato hates Kaido, which presented an interesting dynamic to explore, and we did later on. But we also learned that Yamato admires and is borderline obsessed with Oden. So much so that he goes by his name and considers himself a man for the sole reason that Oden was a man. And look, I know that we could have just rolled with it, take it as a character quirk, let it go, roll our eyes and move on. But it's not that simple when that quirk becomes his whole character. Yamato could have been equally as obsessed with Oden, even gone by his name without having to throw gender into the equation. It would have made no difference. Oden is my role model and I aspire to be like him, so call me Oden. He could have been ticked off by people calling him Yamato instead of Oden, and that would have been the joke. Make him cry like a baby, make him throw a fit, make him become unreasonably violent, make him become so depressed you would think Perona's ghost have gone through him. I don't know, there's a plethora of options, but no. Instead, Oda decided to be unnecessarily toxic. So what we get is a character designed like a woman that considers himself a man because his role model happened to be one. And that's part of the problem. The motivations are off. Yamato adores Oden for a variety of reasons, none of which are his gender. Oden could have been a woman and Yamato would have obsessed over her all the same. Hell, Oden could have been a tree, and Yamato would have identified as one. Oden could have been a fishman, and Yamato would have... Actually, no, that would have been even more problematic, because I don't know if fish face is a thing, but we would have found out. And Yamato would have joined Zoro in the trial of the century. The thing is that Yamato considering himself a man doesn't stem from an issue with his gender identity, like Kiku. He only considers himself a man because Oden happened to be one. His is a case of identity. But that, in and on itself, isn't really a problem. The real root of the problem isn't really whether Yamato is a man or a woman or whether his motivations are valid or not. Yamato very clearly wants to be addressed as a man, and that should be all the reason we need to do so. It was enough for Luffy, and I would be okay with that. For all intents and purposes, Yamato is a man. Fine, I'm not gonna argue with that. The problem is that Oda himself doesn't take Yamato seriously and jumps at every opportunity there is to point out how funny it is that Yamato considers himself a man but is actually a woman. Ha ha ha. Which is it? Pick a lane, and that is only made worse by the Vivre card file on Yamato where he clearly states Yamato's gender as female. What are we playing at here? How are we supposed to take any of this seriously when Oda himself clearly doesn't? Why stir the pot when it adds absolutely nothing substantial to the plot, especially during Pride Month? And I know, that's just the cherry on top, and Oda probably didn't even know. But all of this is made even worse by how overused that quirk was. Gender issues aside, Yamato blatantly stealing Oden's identity got old very quickly. You can't develop a character when their whole thing is being somebody else. Every time I thought we got a glimpse at Yamato as Yamato, it got ruined by reeling back Oden. Why couldn't Yamato have just really admired Oden and strived to be like him without actually becoming him? That was a very unnecessary rabbit hole we got thrown into that served no purpose other than to piss everybody off. Yamato could have been such an amazing character. He had a cool design, a cool devil fruit, a compelling backstory. Why ruin him like that? Why shackle him to Oden and stop him from being his own character? He was shackled enough by Kaido. Let him be. But Coco, you know what's the cherry on top? After all this crap, Yamato doesn't even join the crew. Yamato stays in Wano, and don't get me wrong, it makes sense, but then again, what was the point? So let's recap. First, he says he's gonna stay in Wano in order to explore and get to know the country like Oden did, which is all good and well, but how is that the first time you think about that? Then, on the next chapter, Oda backpedals and says that he's actually staying in Wano in order to protect it from intruders, now that Kaido is not there anymore. Again, how haven't you thought about that before? I'm not even gonna call this lazy writing because this kind of stupidity takes effort. So now, just in case the community hadn't argued enough over Yamato, we can still argue over whether he joined the crew or not. Did he pull a Vivi, staying behind in Wano because he loves it so much, but one day he hopes he can join the crew and they will still call him Nakama? Or is he an actual Straw Hat commander just stationed in Wano? Which is it? Because both work. Seriously, it's like Yamato was designed to press every single wrong button, touch every nerve there is, and still manage to add nothing of value to the story. Why tease a new crew member and then throw it out the window like hot garbage? Really, honestly, somebody tell me, what was the point?